down the street one day. A man came up to me and asked me what the sound that was on my watch. Yeah. And I said, yes, I said, does anybody really know what sound it is?
I know what time it is. It's 7 o'clock. It's the Business Power Hour show time with Darren and the Music Man, and me with my one eye.
I tell you, Music Man.
I'm only going to do a half a show. I'm only doing a half a show today.
You're only doing it with what, the left half?
The right side. I'm doing the right side. Yeah.
Man, what's going on with your eye, my friend? I mean, it's been almost a month now.
It's just about a month.
Yeah.
That I had the operation. And I was supposed to go back last week, but as you know, I wound up with COVID on top of this. So we got rid of the COVID. So I'm going to the doctor tomorrow. Saturday night, we were sitting in the house. We're watching TV. And all of a sudden, my eye popped. Like I could see something.
Right.
I was just sitting there. So I got to see, I had some peripheral vision and whatever. And this week's been a very positive week. So I think we're heading in good shape. But no kind of horrors, as they say in Italian. We'll find out tomorrow when we go to the surgeon. How was your trip? You were away.
Yeah, I went to San Antonio. As we know, I broadcasted from San Antonio last week, but I did an impromptu show. I went and saw Heather Lee. You know Heather Lee, my goddaughter.
Are you cheating on me?
No, I'm not cheating on you. Okay. I got to do an impromptu show with the very world famous Anthony Hernandez, the dinosaur.
Oh my gosh.
I want to give a big shout out for Anthony for coming on
Anthony.
the show and really helping me out last week, and it was just tremendous. I had a great time with it, and everybody loved it. You know, we got some really good reviews from it. So
that's nice. That was cute.
Pretty excited.
How old is he? Was he 7?
Anthony's 7.
Anthony's 7.
Anthony's 7, and and it's funny. Well, not funny, but the whole house now has COVID. So I don't have it. I'm good. Yeah, no, it's not funny, but it's Saturday, I got a text message saying, "Hey, we got COVID." We went and got tested. We're good.
I came home the Sunday before, and I was doing a job, and I came home, and I was a little, tired because it was a lot of hours, and I came home, and I just laid down. I wound up, I had 100.3. Next day, I went to take a test, and bingo, COVID. But I haven't had a reaction at all. And I just got tested again, and I'm COVID free. So all is good. But we got a very special guest, and I have to apologize to her. She was supposed to be on the show
a couple of times, right?
A couple of times, yeah. And one thing happened, another, and then I'm sure she felt that we were taking advantage. I don't know why she would feel that way, but we weren't. And she's a very, very interesting guest. And anyone who has been to a hospital and or a doctor's office and has gotten an invoice and you don't understand it, we're going to help you through Adria Gross, whose company is MedWise Insurance Advocacy. How are we doing so far, Adria? We doing pretty good?
I'm doing great.
All right. So we should cut it off right now since we're doing a good job.
You know what, Adria, I have to apologize for my partner. He just, he's a knucklehead sometimes.
I'm a knucklehead all the time. So
yeah, I know. I think the medications that you're on are really
I'm loving them. I'm loving them.
I
want to find out about what it is that you do. I mean, we have a client, actually. Darren and I are on the board of another patient advocacy organization, and they don't specialize in accounting, in regards to advocacy and checking your bill. I'm sure they can help, but they're more, I guess, involved in when you're a patient and the do's and don'ts and watching people take care of you. What do you do?
I help people throughout the United States when they have problems with medical bills. If they're denied, out of network, overcharged, they can't get pre-authorization. And I've been in the health insurance industry now for over 33 years.
That's all?
That's it.
That's it. Well, like you said, short evening tonight.
That was easy.
Adria, before
Worth
you
every
got
penny.
That's it. Adria, so before you got into the health insurance business, what were you doing before that, and how did you get into the health insurance business?
Let's go back to like teenage years. What were you thinking about wanting to do with your life?
Well, what I always wanted to do, I wanted to help people. And even when first of all, I grew up in Port Jervis, New York, where Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey come together. And I remember when I was a fourth grade, and there was nothing for kids to do. I always thought to myself, we need a place for kids. And later on, and I'll tell you how this happened, but I wound up starting a place for children in Monroe, New York. I opened up a Y. We never had a place in Port Jervis. That has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about tonight, though. Yeah. So here I was in fourth grade, and I had that idea in my head, and I always wanted to help people. I learned my grandmother used to, after World War II, she brought girls here from France. After the war, they were orphans. But anyhow, I had these dreams in my head, and I always loved helping people. But when I was 10 and a half years old, 11 and a half, in Port Jervis, New York, there was only one synagogue, and I was in Hebrew school in the afternoon, and we had a map of Israel. I had to write down the cities, and I said to the rabbi, I don't feel well. And he thinks I'm trying to get out of this test, and he was very hesitant about me walking down the hall, but he finally let me go down the hall. I sat down in a chair outside his office, and as soon as I sat down in the chair, I went into a coma.
Went to a coma?
Yeah.
How old were you?
11 and a half.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. And what was the coma? What was the coma from?
Well, we'll get into that. I'll get back to that, how it happened. But I'm sitting in the chair, and my dad comes to pick me up, and he sees that I can walk, but I can't talk. And
stroke?
I couldn't talk, but I could walk. I guess I could understand what he was saying. I don't know, but I just couldn't speak. And he turned the car around and drove me to the one and only hospital in Port Jervis, New York, which used to be St. Francis. It was now Mercy. Now it's Bon Secours. Always a Catholic hospital. And around 3:30 in the morning, about 10 hours after being in this coma, I woke up and I looked straight ahead, and I see a cross on the wall, thinking I'm in heaven. But to the right was the rabbis, left was my parents. I felt like it was Dorothy, the Wizard of Oz, waking up out of this dream, right? And from that day on, I lived with epilepsy. I had encephalitis, which was an inflammation of the brain. I was taking horseback riding lessons. So if an insect bites a horse carrying encephalitis, the insect bites you, I almost went bye-bye.
Wow.
But I'm here for a reason. Mm-hmm. I'm here for a reason. Man, I had a tough life. I used to average 18 seizures a month. At one point, I was on 32 pills a day. Wow. The longest period I ever went without a seizure was 3 months. After college,
were they very violent seizures, or were they?
They varied by medication.
Okay.
I already wrote a book. I'm publishing another book.
What does that mean by medication?
So I was on 18 different types of medication. And sometimes I'd have 3 at a time, or 2 at a time, or 4 at a time, of just the types of medication. That's what I'm telling you. At one point I was on 32 pills a day, always very drugged up and drowsy, and and every time I'd have a seizure, they would vary by the medication. So like first I had I think I had grand mal, and then petit mal, and then focal seizure, then psychomotor seizures. And, the seizures would change with the medication. It was really crazy. And this next book, I've already written a book, but I have another book coming out about myself and 25 other people who've had a difficult life due to their condition. And in that book, there's a chapter about psychomotor seizures and some of my crazy experiences that either some people are going to laugh or they're going to cry. It's going to be one or the other.
Right.
But anyhow, I lived with that condition, and
Do you still
finally,
suffer from it?
no. After living with that condition for almost 25 years, I had a left temporal lobectomy.
A who?
Who? What?
A left temporal lobectomy. They, in this side of my head, they drilled into my head to take part of my skull out. Okay. And I always said to my mother afterwards, the shape of it was like a question mark. Is it going to work or is it not? But you know, God was good to me. I always prayed, and I finally got the gift that I wanted. I mean, every time I blew out my candles, I used to say, please relieve me from this condition.
Right.
And finally I received that.
So you had some kind of pressure in that, and they had to remove part of your skull in order to.
Well, what happens with people who have epilepsy, what happens is the electrodes, what causes a seizure is you have electrodes in your brain, and they're supposed to be able to connect, but sometimes they can't connect, and that causes the seizure. Right. They have a new mechanism that some people are using, which is they get an incision in the neck, and it's a machine that they put in. And every time you're about to go to a seizure, because they see that it's not connecting in the brain, it gets it to connect, and people don't have seizures. But that came after I had brain surgery.
Oh, yeah, obviously. Yeah. You know, it was like,
and I'll tell you just a story about that. That mechanism that they use, I'd have to look up the name of it, but there was someone who came to me. I mean, after the epilepsy, after the brain surgery, I then thought to myself, I have to change careers. And
what were you doing at that time?
Well, it was very interesting. When I went to college, I always wanted to be a teacher since I was 10. And I go to this college, and they said to me, "Oh, no problem. You know, you can be a teacher, blah, blah, blah." Well, I was going to school in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I walked out of a classroom due to a seizure. I was teaching a 4th grade class in Arlington. I walked out of the classroom. I was having a seizure. I went back into the classroom. I didn't collapse, but I had like a petty multifocal seizure. I walked out, and once I came out of the seizure, I walked back in, and they wanted me to leave school and reapply 2 years later. They said that to me 2 weeks after this happened. And they said, you know, leave and reapply. And I said, hey, wait a minute. You know what? You told me before I came here this was not going to be an issue. Right. I said, don't tell me I have to leave now. I said, you've messed up my life. I've wanted to be a teacher since the age of 10, and now you're telling me I can't. And this was before the Disabilities Act of 1990, which when that happened, they couldn't do this stuff to people any longer, but it happened to me. So I said, hey, look, you know what? I'm in my last semester of college. I said to him, I want to finish college. I don't want to reapply to your college 2 years from now. You said this was not going to be an issue, and now you're telling me elsewise. So they were kind enough. I didn't graduate that June. I graduated the following August. I said to him, you have a graduate school for social work. I said, I need help now because you've messed up my life. And I did that, and I graduated in August. So then I went back to Port Jervis, not knowing what to do, did some work in a nursing home, moved back to New York City, worked in the garment industry for about over 10 years.
That will give you epilepsy.
and I worked for a major company that was on the stock exchange. They were very, very good to me. You know, every time I have a seizure, they wheel me down the hall, and then I come out of the seizure.
When you had these seizures, were they physical seizures? Like, I've only been around really one person who I actually had to help him. I was working as a kid in a supermarket, and this older gentleman actually fell down on the floor and started swallowing his tongue.
Yeah.
So I happened to know a little bit about how to try and help him, and everything worked out okay. But that was really scary. I mean,
that's a grand mal seizure. Yeah, that's a grand mal seizure, and depending upon the medication, sometimes I had grand mal seizures. One time, which really, when it came to the point of talking about surgery, I was seeing a doctor on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. I lived in Port Jervis for 7 months, moved to New York City I lived in New York City for 20 years. So I'm seeing a doctor on the Upper Side of Manhattan, and I had a grand mal. I fell down, and you know when they have like those little gates, those short gates, they're like maybe a foot high, and they surround a tree. I fell into one of those, and I broke a rib. or a couple ribs. And I very often, sometimes I couldn't speak for 4 hours after grand mal. I had a grand mal that day. So people were surrounding me when I came out of the grand mal. They helped me get up. You know, I was very grateful, but it was also every time I had a grand mal, people were around me. I was embarrassed. I mean, I'm so embarrassed that I had this grand mal and now people have to help me. And I didn't want to be around anyone. It was very, very uncomfortable. So anyhow, I finally realized where I was and where I had to go, but I couldn't talk. And that day I found out I broke 2 ribs, and I finally said to myself, you know what? I was scared to have the surgery. I thought I might turn into a vegetable, but listen, I met with the neurosurgeon before I went. I spoke to people who had the same exact surgery that I did. This had originated in Canada. They were only doing it like 50 years prior to that. They were doing it in Canada. And now they were starting to do it in the United States. It was 3 years that year. They only had 5 hospitals in New York State who were doing the surgery. I had the surgery, and
well, how does this lead you to on your way to where what you're doing?
So this is what happened. I thought to myself, I'm not going back to the garment seizure free. And I came in through the back of the Blue Cross Blue Shield. Within 2 weeks, they taught me how to deny claims.
So wait a second. So you decided, I'm not going back to the garment district. You got a job with Blue Cross Blue Shield. And the first thing they teach you is how to deny claims.
Right.
How to not pay money out. That's an insurance company's business, right? Is to pay out as little money as possible, take all our money, take as much money from us as possible, and give us back as little as possible. Right?
Of course.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, I had a phone call today from a guy. I told him, look, I'll do it on a percentage basis. The percentage varies according to how big the case is. I either charge hourly or percentage. A lot of people want to do percentage because if I can't save them any money, they don't have to.
Of course, right.
So hold on. Wait. So I better understand what your business is you take hospital bills and bills that go to the insurance companies, and you analyze them to say, hey, look, the insurance company's not paying their fair share. I'm now going to get them to pay their fair share. Right.
Well, usually, sometimes you can get an insurance company to pay a little bit more money, but most of the cases that come to me, they're paying nothing. Like the one that I heard about today, it was either an emergency or limited times that they could be at a hospital during the year. I'm not sure exactly what it was. I think the guy's going to send me the story, but it was I lectured before attorneys, CPAs, financial planners. This guy, I don't know exactly how he heard about me, but he himself is a CPA. I was just published for the 4th time in the CPA Journal. The article just came out. But anyhow,
congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I've been in quite a few magazines. I've been in Consumer Reports 4 times. I was recently in October in the Wall Street Journal. About a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, I was in Forbes magazine for the 4th time. I've been published many times.
Well, obviously you've been published and you've written a book and yada yada.
So because I'm out there educating
somebody
people.
Like this guy, for argument's sake,
so I'm educating people on what to do. Okay, they need to know.
First thing they should do is to call you. And how do they reach you?
It's 845-238-2532. 845-238-2532.
What a segue. Okay.
What a segue, right? And you can go to her website, right? Medical Insurance Advocacy.com, or go to Facebook, Adria Gross. All right. On Twitter, follow her on Twitter, MedWise INS Advoc. Okay. You can find her there, and also on LinkedIn. So there's a lot of different ways to get a hold of you. And so basically because I've had this problem too, where there have been times where I've gotten something done medically, and then all of a sudden I'm getting this big bill, or I'm getting a notice from my insurance company saying, we're not covering it, or we're only covering a small percentage of it. And, oh, by the way, you now have to pay it. It's now your fault.
And the thing is, if it's an in-network provider, they're not supposed to do that to you. But even if you have surgery and you go and it's an in-network provider and you have everything scheduled and you're going to be covered, blah, blah, blah. You go to the hospital, you have the surgery. But now some of the doctors there were out of network. Like even if you went to the emergency room, a lot of times the hospitals have an outside company who runs the emergency rooms. The hospital doesn't even run the emergency rooms themselves.
Oh, also, sometimes the doctors that will perform an operation are not on your list. They're sponsored by the hospital, so they just hook them up to you. What do you do in a situation like that?
Right. If they're out of network, man, and you get the surgery, they might go ahead and balance bill you. I heard a case recently where the doctor, he was out of network. He got paid over $60,000 and are after this woman for another $100,000.
Wow. So wait a second. Okay, so let's back up. Let me back up a little bit. So because I'm trying to follow the timeline here. So you went to work for Blue Cross. How long did you work for Blue Cross?
So I was there for 2 years, and then I did training. They were relocating down to Richmond, Virginia. It was 60% owned by Empire, 40%, 60 or 40% Empire, and also National Capital. So they moved everything down to Virginia. I did training down there. And then I went to American International Group, and I worked there for 10 years.
AIG?
Yep. And at AIG, within 2 weeks, they taught me how to deny. I was in claims, and I went into underwriting. And I learned a lot. And I learned a lot to the extent that if an insurance company is not paying, and I know that claim should be covered, I will go to the insurance company and speak to them. And I have to be honest with you, I'm one of the few people where almost all the insurance executive offices know me.
Let me just interrupt for just 1 second, just a little side note. When you worked for AIG, you worked down on Wall Street, correct?
Yes.
Okay, what floor did you work on?
I think it was the 10th, 12th, or 14th floor.
I was in the recruiting business. AIG was a big client of mine. I used to go to the 118th floor in the building to see my clients, and that freaking building would shake.
That was 70 Pine.
Oh, that was crazy. Okay.
I worked in 80 Pine, which is a much shorter building, but you were going into 70. Yeah. And the CEO used to be on the 18th floor of 70 Pine.
Okay.
Did you ever go to his office?
No, I just went to certain people and took care of business.
He was dealing with HR. He wasn't dealing with.
I was dealing with the corporate controller. So
and I'm sure you remember there used to be over 100 companies who were all part of AIG.
Oh yeah, they were a pig of a company. I mean, they had everything they owned.
Right. Yeah, they had everything. It was crazy. No, that's not true.
So you went to AIG, okay, and then what?
And then I took some time off. I adopted 2 kids from Vietnam. I kept my feet wet in the insurance business. I went to one of my doctors, said, "Hey, listen, I want to see how to submit the bills." And I said, "I'll do it for nothing. I just want to learn how to do it." So he hired me, and he says, "Come in whenever you want." I had keys. I take care of my kids during the daytime. I used to go in at night, but they taught me how to bill. And then
were you a medical biller? Is that what your title was, medical billing?
Yes. And what happened was, after working with him for a few years, then I opened up a medical billing business. So, and I've had that business now for over 15 years. So, and I only bill for one provider, but because of the fact that I was denying claims for 2 insurance companies, and then I opened up a medical billing business, I saw what was going on both sides, even when the doctors are not getting paid, and what to do. So I feel that for that reason, that's why 11 years ago, I opened up MedWise Insurance Advocacy. And I have been successful. And even to the point, like I said to you, I'm one of the few people out there who gets in touch with the executive office because I worked for 2 major insurance companies. I know what went on there when people were not happy with the decision of the insurance company. And that is my guide to help me to help others.
So basically what you're saying, and real plain, because you're saying it's real simple, is that if you're having problems with your insurance company and you can't get anywhere, you can help them get somewhere. and get a lot of their problems resolved. Because, and let's face it, and tell me if I'm wrong in making this statement. It's the people who don't have the resources to fight are the ones that are getting screwed.
There's an attorney in Chicago who's been in this industry a long time. Mm-hmm. She just sent me a case. She says, Adria, I don't know where to go. I can't do anything else. You know the executives. Will you take the case on? I said, sure.
Is Chicago a big location for you? Because I know
I'm national. There's a lot of issues in Texas. I'm working on
Bridge Schwartz in Chicago too.
I do know him.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's a small world. We know a lot of different people, right? So, Adrian, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
Please call me 845-238-2532. Adria Gross, 845-238-2532.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, Adria, I want to hear about some of the unique stories that you have in reference to some of these cases, and some really tricky ones, and then also some unique ones where you sit there and go, I can't believe they're denying this.
Well, what I want to know is the business aspects. Mm-hmm. That's what I want to know. And I'm sure that our people want to know too, how you approach certain things, how you get to the level of where you are, how you retrieve money back for people, and the procedure. Do you work like an attorney that will take a portion of the settlement? We'll save that for the second half.
And when we come back, we're going to find out all the answers to all of those questions. And I'm sure Norm has a whole bunch more. We'll be right back after these messages.
You say the nice.
The Business Power Hour gives you something that you normally get with your typical advertising on the internet
or in the newspaper. Right? None of that stuff.
You get thousands of viewers who see the show every week, not only locally but nationally and internationally,
for a very nominal fee. Actually, we did it and we broke it down. It will actually cost you 0.75 cents per view that you get. That's it. All right, so if you're interested in being a guest on the Business Power Hour with Darren and the Music Man, please give me a call at 631-698-9696 or email me at norman@friendentusa.com or call Darren at...
You can call me at 844-987-CBMS. That was 844-987-CBMS, or email me at Darren@bphdmm.com.
I think I'm going to get in touch with you also.
Yeah?
I am, to make sure that you get here on time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right?
It's the first time ever I've been late.
Aquata, also known as the money tree, is a tree that flourishes in the tropical rainforest. Unlike other trees, it depends on 5 separate trunks to prosper, each one bringing its own share of water and nutrients to the leaves. Like the money tree, your business has many different trunks that need your attention. Sales, marketing, finance, operations, and culture. Fail to cultivate any one of these and the whole tree collapses. I understand this better than anyone else, which is why I developed My Prosperity Tree, a program designed to address all of these areas, not just one or two. We help you identify who you are as a company, define your direction, and assist with developing the systems that will enable you to scale your business the most efficient and effective way, allowing your company to bloom into your own prosperity tree. So plant your tree today by visiting myprosperitytree.com or call us at 844-987-CBMS. That's 844-987-2267.
And welcome back to the Business Power Hour with Darren and the Music Man and our guest, Adria Gross. Adria, do you have a money tree? If you don't, you should talk to Darren about his money tree and the service that he provides.
I like that. I like that commercial.
Well, he did. He's got that thing all worked out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Our friend Chris Gannon put that together for me, so he did a really good job with doing that. So.
Actually, that's one of the reasons why Darren was down in Arizona, because he's got this money tree thing going across the country.
Well, Arizona was May, Texas. I was in Texas.
Do I hear your commercial on the radio?
No, I don't put it on the radio. No.
Okay.
But yeah, you know what? It would go good on the radio.
You should have said yes. Here's my number. Call me. I got to teach you everything.
But enough about me. The show is about Adria. Adria, you know, one of the things that we were talking about before was I want to hear about. Give me a difficult case that you've had where you've sat there and you went, wait a second, this makes no sense as to why they're making denials. And then they fought tooth and nail, and how you overcame that. Walk me through that process.
The case that I want to share with you right now was just published in the CPA Journal. It just came out like in the last week or so. And this was a crazy case where the people called me up, and they live out in California. They're in San Francisco. I've lectured a lot about this case because this was insane what happened to this man. So he's working for an international company. And he, when he turned 65, it's international. He was out in California working for them, turned 65. He goes to his employer and says, well, now I'm 65, so shouldn't I apply for Medicare? They said, no, don't worry. We're offering you insurance. It was one of the major insurance companies. They said, don't worry. He spoke to quite a few people just to confirm it, because now he's 65 years old. Mm-hmm. So he turns 75 and he gets sick. And he goes into this hospital in San Francisco.
So he worked there 10 years.
He worked there for like around 30 years. But when he turned 65, he says, hey, how about if I apply for Medicare? No, you don't have to. He's going back and forth with HR. They said, don't. Okay. Right. So he winds up in the hospital at 75, and they're pushing him out the door from this international company. And the insurance company, I couldn't believe this story. They paid out, they took it back. They paid out, they took it back. This went on 5 or 6 times. His wife gets in front of a computer. She finds me. I'm a part of a couple organizations. I'm listed there, and you know, I always get recommendations from people after I help them. And they hired me, and we originally thought the bill was going to be $100,000. We did it on a percentage basis.
Right.
Well, now they say, hey, Adria, we think the bill is $60,000. I said, well, look, let's leave the percentage where it is. Because usually the higher the amount of money, the lower the percentage, right? So, all right. So anyhow, let me tell you, man, I was getting nowheres with the insurance company. And on a Friday afternoon in the month of July, this is going back not even a year ago. In the month of July, I found this guy's email address and his phone number.
Who's this guy?
The guy was, they have 2 CEOs of this company. One is in the United States and one's in Europe, because this is a worldwide company. Right. So the guy who's the CEO in the United States, I get his phone number and I get his email address. And I reached out to him at 5:05 p.m. Eastern time on a Friday. What wound up happening is he got my email, and at 7:00 that night, the law firm for the company contacted me and said, really? Adria, I'm going to reach you on Monday. Well, I got to tell you, between the company and the law firm, things weren't working out the way I wanted it to. And there was a lot of fighting going on. And as I went back and forth between the insurance company and the company the guy worked for, after multiple phone calls to the corporation and to the insurance company, I contacted the CEO in the United States in July, and finally in July, and then finally in January, I got it resolved. And at the end, the hospital got paid all the bills. But listen to this: those bills that they thought were $100,000, and then they went down to $60,000. They were over $660,000.
Wow.
So somebody left off a couple of zeros.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, right? So I'm trying to get the whole process. Why did they pay it out and then take it back? What was their justification for that?
Because now look, you have to there's a few points that I want to make this evening.
Mm-hmm.
In New York State was the first state that had this thing called the surprise bill law. It started April 1st of 2015. And starting January 1st this year, they have another law that covers all the states, the federal government. The other stuff was done state by state, which not all states would even adopt this bill or anything like it. So now the federal government said, hey, you know what? We're gonna have that law for all the states. But listen to this. This is all federal. And that guy, look, he worked for a large corporation. That first law that they had, which they did have in California after New York State started it, the fact that he worked for a large corporation, it was ERISA plan, ERISA, self-funded, self-insured. They didn't have to go by this law that was adopted in California because he worked for this large corporation. So the U.S. government passed this bill. It started January 1st of this year. It's called the No Surprise Act. But people think, every time you see an article, like when I was in Forbes magazine about 3 weeks ago, it was on a Monday, it spoke about what could still happen to you. Because let's say you go to a hospital, and let's say that hospital says to you, okay, sign the pages, even if you're an attorney, you're not going to know what the hell you're signing because you're sick as a dog. You might even be unconscious. Okay. And you sign it, and even if you were to know what it says, but there's something in that law that you might be signing those papers saying, are you going to allow us to still balance bill you?
Are you going to allow what?
Balance billing, which means
that
whatever's left over.
You sign this paper, we're going to balance bill you. You're allowing them to balance bill you.
Which means that if the insurance company only pays 50% of the bill, you have to now pay the other 50%. Where a lot of insurance, and we know this, right? Our insurance policies are, well, you have a deductible, and then when you hit the deductible, then you only have a small copay. Right.
So if I go in and buy a car and they tell me the car is $30,000, I know that the cost of the car is $30,000. Okay. Right. When you go in for an operation, you don't know the cost of an operation. You have no idea what the hospital room is going to cost. My wife just got an invoice today, which would cause we're Medicare and we have for 5 days. It was $7,500 for a room.
That's a pretty fancy place.
But they're not charging you.
Exactly. And nobody tells you how much anything happens to be, or how many times the doctor actually comes to visit you, and how many times has the doctor really not shown up, and he puts in a charge for all of that. Do you take care of that? Do you sneak in there behind?
Well, listen, when I lecture, I tell people, wind up in the hospital, try and have a family member or friend keep track of who comes in and who goes out. And get their name.
But you can't do that. That's impossible. You can't. The patient.
Actually, no, that's not true, because you know this as well as I do, Norm. That's what a patient advocate can be there for.
Right, but you got to have somebody there that can verify.
Have a patient advocate.
They have to sit there 24/7.
Right. Okay. Yeah. They would have to sit there.
Maybe you have someone else coming in. Maybe you have your daughter, your son.
So they didn't have that, for argument's sake. Now they get this invoice and then they give it to you. So what was your settlement? How did you settle this?
So in that case, I did a percentage. I didn't, even though it was $660,000.
No, but what did you do? How did you reduce the $600,000?
I got the insurance company to pay for everything.
There you go. That's what we want to hear.
Yeah.
Gotta pull it out of you, but that's what we want to hear.
So it took over 6 months to get this done.
9 months.
Obviously,
It took 9. It
right?
took. I was working with the insurance company already for a couple of months before I went right to the CEO of the company. So I could say it took about a year. Some cases, I just overturned a case. It was a hospital in New Jersey. The bill started out. She had a really awful pilot through the federal government, and the bill was originally 117 grand. Then they were nice enough to lower to 99,000 and change.
That was nice.
But I got
that was
that whole
nice,
bill
huh?
written off. Yeah, I got the whole bill written off. That took almost a year. Another case that I had in Louisiana where it was another awful healthcare policy. It was disgusting. And I spoke to the broker. The broker couldn't do anything about it. But at the end, the bill was over 160,000. And we got them down to 10 grand.
Well, you know what? The whole thing with Obamacare was for the purpose of, hospitalizations and all of these huge bills that people would have insurance to cover this. And you're pointing out tonight that even though all of these things have been put in place for everybody, that the system is still broke and it still doesn't work right, obviously, because you go on these networks to get these insurance policies, and to get anything that's reasonable for most people to pay for, they got a $10,000 deductible or a $7,500 deductible. How many people actually pay $7,500 during a year for tests and things like that? It's supposed to be fair, but you're telling us that most of these policies, because of the way they're written, won't cover those things that the policy is really meant to be for.
Right. And
who
even
reads the fine print?
And even if you have, listen, this is crazy when you think about it. With Obamacare, the deductibles went up, okay, and some of the copays went up too.
Right.
But think about this for a minute. If you have a family and you're covering your family and you're paying, let's say, between $1,500 to $2,000 a month for your family for a really good policy, okay, they'll cover for out of network, they'll cover in network, they'll cover for almost everything. But think about this for a minute.
Where do you get it for $1,500?
You're not going to get it.
Wait. If you get a deductible, let's say you have a deductible of $10,000, right? Okay.
Right.
Now listen to this. You go to a doctor. I'm going to see this great doctor. He's out of network. He's charging me $1,000 for the visit. But your insurance company, okay, says reasonable customary charges for that amount should only be $250. So listen, $250 will go towards your deductible, but not that $1,000 that you paid.
Again, you're pointing out the flaw in this whole system. Right. You because now it's not costing me $10,000. Now it's costing me $30,000.
Right. And then on top of it, look, okay, so 12 times 2,000 is $24,000, right? And then you got to reach your deductible on top of that, and you're even lucky if they're going to accept all that you pay to see that out-of-network provider.
Right. And then and what it comes down to is somebody who makes $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year, how can they afford this? They can't. Right. And this is the problem. This is the problem with our system and the way that it works. It's, I talk about this before Obamacare. I had really great insurance. I paid next to nothing for it. And I kept the same policy when Obamacare kicked in. I kept the same policy. My premium tripled overnight. And I was like, whoa, it was like, it's like, okay, now I got to find something more affordable. Right. And more affordable, now you're getting into all of the muckety muck of what you're talking about now, so it's crazy because, it's very hard to find those policies that are reasonably priced that you can get a lot of, I would say fair, out of pocket of,
you got to become 65.
You got to become 65 and get on Medicare, and do the Medicare stuff,
Right.
And that's when we call our friend Medicare Mike, and that's when
I tell people be very, very cautious because, these sharing plans, which are very often a religious group, they hardly pay anything Be very, very careful. These associated health plans, which is often through an association, be very, very careful. If you have a short-term care policy, there usually is pre-existing conditions on it, along with those religious plans. Read. I tell people all the time, read what you're covered for and what you're not covered for.
So let me ask you a question, because it's getting towards the end. We got just a few minutes left. I'm Joe Schmo. I hear about you. I have an invoice for $200,000. I call you up. What is it that I have to do with you? What do we discuss when I call you? What kind of papers do you need? Let's say that we agree on your terms and yada yada. What do I have to do?
Okay. So what I want is the front and back of your insurance card. I want to see the denials, the reason why they're not paying. I would like to have access to your policy, but the first thing that I always ask for is explain exactly what happened. Because like, was it an emergency? Was it not an emergency? Where did you go? How did this happen? A lot of times, hey, look, you know what? The insurance company may say, hey, did you fall in someone's building? Did you fall on ice? Because they're trying to find other ways to also have someone else pay for it.
So that's all you need?
So it's like, so what I ask for is explanation. And normally after I speak to someone and we have an agreement on percentage or hourly rate, then I sometimes what I even do now is, let's say they have a major insurance company they're with, I even send them a form to fill out for me to speak to the insurance company on their behalf. Right. Yeah. So I try and take once I speak to someone, we come to an agreement, I send them a contract, I send them authorization for me to speak on their behalf. But if they're part of a major insurance company, I'll say, hey, look, here's the form, fill this out, so I can talk to the insurance company on your behalf.
So this way you don't need them on the phone, because you want to keep emotions out of it.
Right.
I do this when I deal with the IRS in New York State with tax clients. I don't want them on the phone,
right,
because emotion gets in the way. And, for the most part, when you're dealing one-on-one with these people, it's business, and people are dealing with you in a business fashion. When emotions get in it and people start, saying things they shouldn't say, it could really hurt your ability to resolve the issue, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The one thing I want to share with you is a lot of people out there who have had long-term care policies for years, they're getting denied left and right. I was involved in those long-term care policies, as well as writing health insurance policies. So they come to me, I charge hourly. If I feel it's something that should be paid, I've overturned a lot of cases that have been denied for long-term care.
So why would a case for, this is what I don't get. I pay a lot of money for this policy for years and years and years and years and years. I know eventually I may need it. Now all of a sudden I need it. And right away they're denying the policy.
All the time.
What would be a reason why they would, I got a long-term care policy. Why would they deny it if I need long-term care?
They find any reason at all to deny a claim because they don't want to pay out. I'm working with a guy right now. I'm going to speak to him. In fact, after our meeting tonight, I need to call him up. He's in the Midwest, okay? And he has a condition that they don't want to give him treatment for. And when I looked on Medicare, because most of the commercial insurance companies follow the Medicare rules,
right?
This is covered by Medicare. How can you not pay for this man to have this procedure? And let me tell you, we are going right to the head of the insurance company, and we have a list.
You have to. You can't deal with it. You can't deal with a representative that answers the phone. You don't get anywhere that way. You need someone with responsibility.
Yeah, he's got to go in for the procedure next week. I said to them, I read about the CEO of the insurance company. I said, we're going to call her up, and this is what we're going to say to her.
So let me. Okay, so Adria, obviously you're a pit bull. You're going after people, and you're not messing around. You're going right to the top. That's how you get people's attention.
You got to.
Yeah. How can people get a hold of you All right, and to hire you, to get you to help them.
And call me at 845-238-2532. Again, that's 845-238-2532. And my website to look at is www.medicalinsuranceadvocacy.com. Again, that's www.medicalinsuranceadvocacy.com.
All right. You can also find Adria on Facebook and Twitter, right? And also you can email her at adria@medwisebilling.com. All right.
Adria, do you give any seminars? Do you give lectures? Do you teach?
I will be speaking. I just spoke recently at a college. It was LaSalle University. If you look up Adria Goldman Gross LaSalle, you can watch the video. I was I was honored to be the second graduate to speak before the presidential speakers series, and that took place in December. But if you look up Adria Gross LaSalle University, you should be able to find the video. If you can't, just call me and I'll send it to you.
What was the lecture about?
It was all about what's going on in the industry. Some of the things that we spoke about this evening. And on Wednesday, February 23rd at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, I'll be speaking before Dominican College. They're in Rockland County. It's going to be the 8th annual healthcare symposium. The title of it's going to be In the Age of Telemedicine, because some insurance companies will allow telemedicine, some will not. And I'm going to talk about what you have to really focus on if you're going to if you're going to see someone for telemedicine.
When you went at LaSalle, what did you chat about?
I spoke about some cases. I also wrote a book that Ralph Nader liked so much he won an international edition. It's called Solved, SOLVED, exclamation point, Curing Your Medical Insurance Problems. That was supposed to be a big business card, not ever thinking that Ralph Nader would endorse it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I am just so honored to do the work that I do and help people.
Well, okay, so you're doing a lot of things. You're dealing with are you working with any politicians to try to change some of these laws?
Well, guess what? If you or anybody out there, 3 people, including this a couple of very dear friends, one of which is a neurosurgeon, the other friend of mine who was pushing for tonight's speaking engagement. She was pretty high up in 2 Chamber of Commerce's. 3 people in 1 week said to me, Adria, you have to be a lobbyist. So if you know anybody out there who's looking for a lobbyist to fight on behalf of the patient, have them call me.
I definitely will. So Adria, you know what? It's that time. We're right up against it. You were just a tremendous guest. Is there any other things that you want to just throw out there? You're in CPA Journal this week. You were in Forbes, right? And you published all over the place. You have a bunch of books. Can you get your books on Amazon?
Yes. Just going to Amazon, Solved, SOLVED, exclamation point, Curing Your Medical Insurance Problems. It's a guide. It gives you ideas about what to do. And you can always call me and just any questions you have, I'm always willing to speak to people.
All right.
And you're national?
I'm a national.
Not just local. So people, obviously you mentioned California and Chicago.
Even if you have a parent who came in from India or another country and they had travel insurance and they're getting screwed, they won't pay, call me.
All right. Great. Thank you, Adria. Really appreciate you being on the show.
Great job.
Great job tonight. And Norm and I are going to wrap up now. All right.
Whoa.
Great job, man.
She certainly knows her business.
She definitely knows her business. She's a pit bull. You got to love that. You got to love that. I love the fact that she goes right to the top. She doesn't mess around.
It's a shame that there has to be someone that does what she does, that people just can't deal directly and get honest responses.
Well, it comes down to what I was talking about before, is that Obamacare, for all its intents and purposes, is not working the way it was intended to. The system is broke, corrupt, whatever you want to call it, and people are not getting what they were promised when this thing was pushed through. So, we got to make changes. Got to make changes. That's the only way.
In a lot of areas.
In a lot of areas. All right. So you're going to the doctor tomorrow. You're going to get your patch off, and then hopefully he'll start letting you drive again, and you'll be back in the studio.
Something like I do. I have to admit that I have been driving, but not at night. I don't drive at night. I only go out when I have to, and that's it. So far, so good, and hopefully everything will be right for bigger and better things.
So we'll be back in the studio next week with our guest, right?
Second time,
and you know
he
what?
had such a good time. But his last name is November.
Right.
He was here in November.
Right. And he's back in January.
He left, if you remember, he says, I got to be back.
Right. And he actually came down to a couple of Civil Air Patrol meetings too. So
yeah, he did pretty well.
Yeah, he's definitely a pilot. And I got some surprises
for you guys. If you folks want to be on the Business Power Hour, you can give me One-Eyed Norman, the Music Man, 631-698-9696. Give me a call, or you can call Darren at
844-987-CBMS. That's 844-987-2267.
Great.
All right. So everybody have a safe week.
Be safe, be healthy, be happy.
And next week we got a couple of surprises because Norm, I did some changes in the studio you don't know about yet.
Okay, looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're gonna have fun. We'll see everybody right here on the Business Power Hour.
Good night, everybody.
Man. Good night, everybody.